The grand ballroom of Alex Carter's mansion was a spectacle to behold. Crystal chandeliers hung from the high ceilings, casting shimmering reflections on the polished marble floor. Elegant drapes adorned the tall windows, framing a view of the city skyline that sparkled under the night sky. Gleaming tables, each dressed in white linen and adorned with extravagant floral arrangements, filled the room, surrounded by a thrumming crowd of the city's elite. The atmosphere was alive with laughter, clinking glasses, and the soft strains of a live orchestra playing in the background. Alex, the mastermind behind this lavish charity gala, stood at the center of it all, exuding confidence in a tailored black tuxedo that accentuated his athletic build. His dark hair was slicked back, and his piercing blue eyes scanned the crowd, taking in the faces of influential business magnates and socialites. He was a man who had climbed to the pinnacle of success, and tonight was a celebration of his achievements, as well as a chance to showcase his philanthropic endeavors. "Alex, over here," came a voice, pulling him from his thoughts. It was Vanessa, a prominent socialite known for her sharp wit and keen eye for fashion. She approached him with a glass of champagne in hand, her sequined dress catching the light. "Vanessa," he greeted with a charismatic smile, leaning in to kiss her cheek. "How are you enjoying the evening?" "It's fabulous, darling. You really outdid yourself this time," she replied, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "But tell me, when are you going to settle down? A man like you should have a beautiful woman by his side." He chuckled, a hint of discomfort flashing across his face. "I'm focused on my work right now, but thank you for the concern. If you're enjoying this video and want to see more content like this, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and activate the bell. That way, you won't miss any of our updates. Your support helps us bring you the best content possible." Continuing, as they chatted, Alex's mind wandered. He was grateful for the success and the lavish lifestyle it afforded him, but there was an emptiness that lingered just beneath the surface. The past was a shadow that followed him, a reminder of choices made and paths taken. He quickly brushed those thoughts aside, forcing himself to engage in the present moment. The night wore on, and the guests mingled, sharing stories and laughter. Alex made his rounds, exchanging pleasantries and shaking hands, all while maintaining his charming facade. It was a well-rehearsed performance, one that he had perfected over the years. Yet, despite the glitz and glamour, he felt a growing sense of unease. Meanwhile, in stark contrast to the opulence surrounding her, a young girl named Lily found herself lost in the grand foyer of the mansion. She had wandered in after getting separated from her father during an earlier charity event. The bright lights and bustling crowd overwhelmed her senses. Lily was small for her age, with long, wavy brown hair and large, expressive green eyes that darted around the room, taking in the extravagance that seemed worlds away from her own life. As she stepped further inside, she marveled at the towering floral arrangements and the intricate designs of the decor. The guests, dressed in designer gowns and suits, appeared like characters from a fairy tale, and she felt small and out of place among them. She clutched her father's wallet tightly, the only familiar object in this sea of unfamiliarity. "Excuse me, miss, are you lost?" asked a kind voice. It was a tall man with a friendly smile, dressed in a crisp suit. He knelt down to her level, his demeanor warm and inviting. "A little," Lily admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I can't find my dad." "Don't worry, we'll find him. Why don't you come with me?" He gestured for her to follow. Lily hesitated for a moment, then nodded, feeling a mixture of anxiety and curiosity. She followed the man through the crowd, glancing around at the lavishly adorned guests, her heart racing. It was all so beautiful, yet so intimidating. As they moved deeper into the ballroom, a sudden commotion drew her attention. Alex was standing at the center of a group, his laughter ringing out as he engaged with his guests. There was something about the way he carried himself that captivated her. He exuded a magnetic charm that seemed to draw people in, yet there was an air of mystery that surrounded him. Lily paused, her eyes widening as she caught a glimpse of him. She felt a strange sense of familiarity, as if she had seen him before. It was then that she remembered the old photograph tucked away in her father's wallet. A faded image of a younger Alex Carter smiling alongside her father. The realization struck her with startling clarity. "I know you," she exclaimed, her voice breaking through the chatter. The man guiding her turned, surprised by her sudden outburst. "Lily, what did you say?" he asked, his brow furrowing in confusion. "Your photo is in my daddy's wallet," she continued, stepping forward. Her heart raced with a mix of excitement and fear, unsure of how the man would react. Alex turned at the sound of her voice, his expression shifting from joviality to confusion. He glanced down at the small girl standing before him, her wide eyes filled with disbelief. "Excuse me?" he asked, kneeling to meet her gaze, curiosity etched on his face. "I saw you in a picture with my daddy," Lily insisted, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "My name is Lily. Do you remember him?" For a brief moment, time seemed to stand still. Alex's mind raced as he processed her words. A photograph? The past flooded back to him. An old partnership, a friendship that had soured into betrayal. He felt a chill run down his spine, the memories both painful and haunting. What is your father's name?" he asked, his voice low and cautious. "Mark," she replied innocently, oblivious to the tension that was beginning to mount in Alex's expression. In that instant, a wave of recognition crashed over him, intermingled with an unsettling sense of dread. Mark had been his business partner once, a man he had trusted implicitly until everything had fallen apart. The betrayal had cost him dearly, and now it seemed that the past was colliding with his present in the most unexpected way. "Lily," he began, his heart racing as he searched for the right words. But before he could continue, the atmosphere around them shifted. The music faded, and the guests began to notice the unusual interaction between the wealthy businessman and the young girl. Whispers circulated, and Alex felt the weight of their scrutiny pressing down on him. "Who is she?" one guest murmured, casting a curious glance in their direction. "Why is she talking to him?" another added, their tone laced with intrigue. As the crowd's attention turned toward them, Alex felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He had built a reputation as a formidable figure in the business world, a man who had risen above the challenges life had thrown at him. But in this moment, facing a child who had unknowingly unearthed the ghosts of his past, he felt vulnerable and exposed. "Lily, why don't we step over there?" he suggested, motioning toward a quieter corner of the room. "I'd like to hear more about your father." She nodded enthusiastically, her innocence radiating in stark contrast to the tension that hung in the air. He took her small hand in his, leading her away from the crowd, and as they moved, the whispers followed them, a reminder of the precariousness of the situation. Alex knew he had to tread carefully. This encounter was not just a chance meeting. It was a thread that could unravel the tightly woven fabric of his life. And as they found a secluded table away from prying eyes, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of something much more complicated than he had anticipated. As the lavish gala continued to unfold around them, the music swirling in a symphony of elegance and laughter, Alex Carter knelt down to meet Lily's gaze. The little girl's eyes were a mix of innocence and surprise, and he could see the flicker of recognition dancing within them. "Who's your father, sweetheart?" he asked gently, his voice low and inviting, hoping to coax the information from her without alarming her further. Lily's small hands fidgeted with the hem of her dress, her shyness almost palpable. "His name is Mark," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Mark Thompson." The moment she said the name, Alex felt a chill crawl down his spine. It was a name he hadn't thought of in years, a name that conjured memories of betrayal, anger, and a past he had tried desperately to leave behind. "Mark Thompson," Alex echoed, his mind racing through the corridors of his memory. "Do you know him well?" He tried to maintain a calm demeanor, though inside, a storm was brewing. Lily nodded earnestly, her pigtails bouncing slightly. "He's my daddy. He always talks about you." "Does he?" Alex asked, curiosity piqued despite his unease. "What does he say?" Lily's brow furrowed in thought, and she looked down at her shoes for a moment. He says you're really smart and that you do important things. But sometimes he looks sad when he talks about you. The innocent observation struck Alex hard, a reminder of the shattered trust that had once existed between the two men. Mark had indeed spoken of him, but it was likely only to paint a picture that suited him, perhaps to justify his own actions. Before Alex could respond, he sensed a shift in the atmosphere around them. The music had faded into the background, and the laughter of the guests transformed into a murmur of whispers. He felt the weight of their scrutiny, eyes darting his way as they tried to decipher the unusual scene playing out before them. A wealthy businessman kneeling before a child. What could it mean? Lily, he said, his voice steady despite the chaos in his mind. Let's step away from here for a moment, shall we? I'd like to talk to you in a quieter place. He gestured toward a small table set away from the main crowd, hoping to shield her from prying eyes. As they walked together, Alex couldn't shake the feeling of dread settling in his stomach. He recalled the last time he had seen Mark, how betrayal had tasted bitter on his tongue. They had been partners, once united by ambition and dreams, but that had all crumbled when Mark had made choices that would haunt them both. Alex had suffered the consequences, losing more than just business. He had lost friends, trust, and a part of himself. When they reached the table, Alex motioned for Lily to sit. What do you like to do, Lily? He asked, trying to keep the conversation light and engaging. He needed to gather more information about her, about Mark, and perhaps to find a way to shield her from the shadows that loomed over their past. I like to draw and play with my friends, she said, her eyes lighting up with enthusiasm. And I love animals. My favorite is a dolphin. They're so nice. Her face was a canvas of innocence, and for a moment, Alex found solace in her childlike wonder. It reminded him of everything he had lost, the simple joys that had been buried under layers of betrayal and regret. Dolphins are amazing, he replied, a smile breaking through his troubled expression. Did you know they're very intelligent? They can even communicate with each other. He could see her nodding, captivated by the idea. Maybe one day you can go see them at an aquarium. I want to, she exclaimed, her excitement palpable. But I've never been to one. Daddy says it's too far. The mention of her father sent a jolt through Alex. Lily, what else does your daddy talk about? Does he ever mention why he doesn't take you places like that? The little girl's face clouded over, and she bit her lip. Sometimes he says he's busy with work, but I think he's hiding something. I hear him talking on the phone late at night, and he sounds angry. Her words were innocent, but they carried the weight of truth. Alex felt a knot tighten in his chest. Just then, a figure loomed at the edge of the table. Mark Thompson, tall and imposing, scanned the scene with a critical eye. Lily, there you are. His voice was sharp, cutting through the moment like a knife. Alex's heart raced as he met Mark's gaze, a mixture of old animosities and new concerns flooding his mind. Daddy! Lily jumped up, her previous excitement evaporating as she rushed toward Mark. I was talking to Mr. Carter. Mark's expression hardened, his eyes narrowing as he scrutinized Alex. I can see that. And what were you two discussing? The question dripped with suspicion, and Alex felt the urge to defend himself, to explain that he was merely trying to befriend the girl. But the words caught in his throat. Just dolphins, Lily replied innocently, her childlike honesty seemingly unbothered by the tension in the air. Did you know they can talk? Mark's features softened momentarily as he looked at his daughter, but then the hardness returned, and he turned back to Alex. You should keep your distance from my daughter, Mr. Carter. She doesn't need to be around people who have a reputation. The veiled threat hung in the air, and Alex felt a surge of anger rising within him. Mark, I'm not here to cause any trouble, Alex said, trying to maintain his composure. I said to stay away, Mark interrupted, his voice low and dangerous. You're not welcome here. With that, he took Lily's hand, pulling her away from the table. Come on, sweetheart. We're leaving. As they walked away, Alex felt a sense of helplessness wash over him. The bitter taste of unresolved issues lingered, and he knew that this encounter was only the beginning. As the guests resumed their chatter and laughter, Alex sat back in his chair, a storm of thoughts swirling in his mind. He had to find a way to protect Lily, to unravel the web of secrets that her father had spun around them. The shadows of the past were creeping back into his life, and he couldn't shake the feeling that fate had brought them together for a reason. In that moment, as he watched Mark lead Lily away, Alex made a silent vow. He would not let history repeat itself. He would discover the truth about Mark and safeguard the innocence of the little girl who, in her own way, was already beginning to heal the wounds of his past. As they settled at the table, a sense of ease washed over them, contrasting sharply with the tension in the air. Lily, her big, curious eyes reflecting the chandelier's golden light, leaned closer to Alex, her small hands clasped over the tablecloth. "My daddy always said you were the smartest businessman ever," she began, her voice a soft lilt amidst the gala's distant laughter and clinking glasses. "He said you made everything better for everyone." Alex felt a bittersweet pang at her words. He smiled, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. "Your father was a good friend, Lily," he replied, carefully choosing his words. "He was a man of vision." Lily beamed, her innocence untouched by the shadows of the past. "He took me to the park last week and told me stories about when he worked with you. He said you two built great things together." Her tiny fingers danced over the rim of her glass, tracing patterns that only she could see. "I wish I could have seen you build something. Was it really that great?" He hesitated, the memories flooding back. The partnership, once filled with promise, had crumbled under the weight of greed and betrayal. "We did create some remarkable projects," he said carefully. "But sometimes, people don't always show their true colors, even those we trust." Lily tilted her head, confusion clouding her features. "What do you mean?" "Sometimes, people can be kind on the surface but hide darker intentions beneath," Alex said, his gaze drifting to the guests mingling at the gala. "It's easy to get lost in the glamour and forget the truth, like the fairy tales," she asked, her voice laced with innocence. "Where the prince seems nice but turns out to be a bad guy." "Yes, exactly like that," Alex replied, surprised at the depth of her understanding. "It's important to be cautious and aware of who we trust." Lily nodded solemnly, her brow furrowing. "Daddy always tells me that I can trust him, but he never talks about you, and he keeps a picture of you in his wallet." She leaned in closer, lowering her voice conspiratorially. "Is that because you're a bad guy?" The question pierced through him like a cold wind. "No, Lily," he said softly, his heart aching for her. "I'm not a bad guy. I made mistakes like everyone does, but I've tried to make things right." Her expression brightened again, her innocence illuminating the dark corners of his memories. "So you're like a hero trying to fix things?" "Something like that," Alex chuckled, taken aback by the weight of her perception. "But heroes come in many forms, and sometimes they need help." "Do you need help?" she asked, her eyes wide with concern. He was struck by the sincerity in her gaze. "Sometimes, yes. It's okay to ask for help, especially when it comes to those we care about." Lily's smile returned, and she seemed to grasp the essence of their conversation. "I want to help you, then. I can be your helper." "Helpers are very important," Alex said, touched by her enthusiasm. "But sometimes the best way to help is to listen and learn." "Okay," she said brightly, her spirit unyielding. "My daddy always listens to me. He says I'm a good listener." A shadow crossed Alex's heart. Your father is right. Listening can often be the key to understanding. As they continued to talk, Alex found himself captivated by Lily's innocence and sincerity, a stark contrast to the betrayal he had experienced in his past. But as he listened to her tales of her father, he felt a growing knot of unease in his stomach. The admiration in her voice was genuine, yet it felt like a double-edged sword. He knew the truth about Mark, and it was a truth that could shatter the little girl's world. "I'm sure your father loves you very much," Alex said, forcing the words through the tightness in his throat. "He must be very proud of you." "Sometimes, I think he is," she said, her smile faltering for just a moment. But he works a lot, and I don't see him as much as I want. She fiddled with her bracelet, a small silver trinket glinting in the light. But he always says I'm his special girl. Alex's heart twisted at her words. It's good to be special, he said softly. But it's also important to feel safe and loved. I feel safe, she insisted, her eyes wide with earnestness. As long as Daddy is around, I feel safe. The weight of those words hung heavily in the air. Alex's mind raced. How could he protect this innocent child, oblivious to the darkness swirling around her father? What do you like to do when you're not with your dad? He asked, hoping to steer the conversation away from the looming shadows. I love to read, she exclaimed, her face lighting up. Daddy takes me to the library, and I read about princesses and adventures. I want to be an explorer someday. An explorer? Alex repeated, his heart swelling with admiration. That's a wonderful dream. There's so much to discover in the world. I want to find treasures and see new places, she continued, her excitement infectious. And I want to help people like you. Helping people is one of the greatest treasures you can find, Alex said, his voice gentle. You're going to do amazing things, Lily. I can already see that. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. The laughter from the gala dimmed, replaced by a sharp voice that cut through the air like a knife. Lily, there you are. Both Alex and Lily turned to see Mark striding toward them, his expression a mixture of irritation and concern. The warmth that had enveloped their conversation evaporated, leaving a cold void. Daddy, Lily squealed, jumping up from her seat. I was just talking to Mr. Carter. Mark's gaze flickered to Alex, tension crackling in the air. I told you to stay close, didn't I? He said, his voice low but firm. You shouldn't be wandering off. Alex stood, instinctively feeling the need to defend Lily. She was just sharing some stories with me, he said, trying to keep his tone neutral. She's quite the storyteller. Mark's eyes narrowed, his demeanor shifting from irritation to something darker. I don't want you talking to him, Lily. Let's go. Lily's face fell, confusion clouding her features as she glanced between her father and Alex. But Daddy, I was learning about helping people. Mark's jaw tightened, and he leaned down, his voice low and menacing. You don't know anything about him. Come on, we're leaving. Alex's heart raced as he watched Mark pull Lily away, her small hand slipping from his grasp. The warmth of their earlier connection felt like a distant memory, replaced by an ominous cloud hovering over them. He could see the fear and uncertainty in Lily's eyes, and it cut him deeper than any betrayal from the past. Wait, Alex called out, his voice firm yet pleading. Lily, remember what we talked about? About listening and understanding? Your father may have stories to share, but so do I. I just want to help. Mark shot Alex a look that could freeze fire. You're not helping anyone, Carter. Stay out of our lives. As they turned to leave, Alex felt a surge of anger and helplessness. He had seen the darkness lurking beneath Mark's facade, and the thought of Lily being caught in that world filled him with dread. He had to protect her, but how could he do that when the very person meant to safeguard her was the one posing the greatest threat? Lily, he called again, desperation creeping into his voice. You're brave, remember that, and brave people ask questions. But Mark hurried Lily away, her small frame disappearing into the crowd, leaving Alex with a whirlwind of emotions. Rage, fear, and an overwhelming sense of responsibility. He had to find a way to reach her, to protect her from the shadows that surrounded her father. The stakes had just risen, and Alex knew he was no longer just dealing with his past. He was fighting for Lily's future. The gala was still in full swing, the music pulsing and laughter echoing through the opulent mansion. But for Alex Carter, the atmosphere had shifted into something heavy and charged. He stood by the grand staircase, watching as Mark pulled Lily away from him. The girl's eyes, once sparkling with curiosity, dulled as she was led away. Stay away from the likes of him, Mark warned, his voice a low growl that barely reached Alex's ears but sent a shockwave through his chest. Alex clenched his fists, feeling a surge of anger course through him. How dare Mark speak to her like that? Just moments ago, he had been sharing stories, building a fragile bridge between their lives, and now it was being torn down by the very person who should have protected her. He stepped forward, the world around him fading as he focused solely on Mark. "What are you doing, Mark?" he called out, his voice steady yet laced with tension. Mark turned, eyes narrowing, his expression a mix of disdain and caution. "You think you know what's best for her? You don't know anything about me or my past," he shot back, his tone biting. "I know enough," Alex replied, a fierce determination igniting in his chest. "And you're not the person you pretend to be. You've kept her in the dark about who you are." "Watch your mouth, Carter," Mark warned, stepping closer, his presence looming. "You think you can just stroll back into our lives after all these years? You're nothing but a ghost from the past. A reminder of what went wrong." Alex's heart raced, the memories flooding back. Betrayal, deceit, and the loss of trust that had shattered his partnership with Mark years ago. He could feel the weight of those memories pressing down on him, but he refused to let Mark's threats intimidate him. "You're wrong. I'm here for Lily. She deserves to know the truth," he asserted, his voice rising slightly above the gala's noise. Mark scoffed, casting a disdainful glance at the gathering guests. "And what truth would that be? That I'm a successful businessman? That I've given her everything she could ever want? Success built on lies and deceit," Alex retorted, his patience wearing thin. "You're putting her in danger, Mark. You don't even see it." The tension between them crackled like electricity, and for a moment, the world around them faded. Mark opened his mouth to respond, but a flash of movement caught Alex's eye. It was Lily, peering around her father's shoulder, her face a mask of confusion and fear. "Daddy," she ventured, her small voice barely audible over the music. "What's going on?" Mark's expression softened for a fleeting moment, but the hardness returned almost instantly. "Nothing, sweetheart. Just a misunderstanding." He turned back to Alex, a silent warning etched in his glare. "You should leave us alone." As Mark led Lily away, Alex felt a sense of helplessness wash over him. He stood frozen for a moment, his mind racing. The last thing he wanted was to upset the girl. Yet he couldn't shake the feeling that their encounter was more than mere coincidence. There was a connection, something deeper lurking beneath the surface, and he felt compelled to explore it. Later that night, as the gala began to wind down, Alex found himself outside on the terrace, the cool night air a welcome relief from the stifling atmosphere inside. He leaned against the railing, looking out over the sprawling city below, lost in thought. His mind replayed the brief interaction with Lily, her innocent face full of wonder and recognition. How could he have let Mark take that from her? Footsteps approached, and Alex turned to see Mark stepping out behind him, the tension between them palpable. "What do you want, Carter?" Mark asked, his voice low and dangerous. "I want to know why you're hiding the truth from her," Alex replied, meeting Mark's gaze unwaveringly. "She deserves to know who you really are. You're not just a father. You're a criminal." Mark's expression hardened, and he took a step closer, invading Alex's personal space. "You have no idea what you're talking about," he hissed. "You don't know anything about my life, my choices. You think you can just waltz in here and play the hero?" "Hero?" Hardly, Alex shot back, his voice rising. "I'm trying to protect her. You're involved in shady dealings, and you're putting her at risk. I know what you've been up to, Mark." Mark's face turned a shade darker, anger flashing in his eyes. "You have no proof. You're just a washed-up businessman trying to reclaim some semblance of a life. Don't think for a second that you can intimidate me. I've come too far to let someone like you ruin everything. Everything built on lies and manipulation," Alex countered, his voice steady. "You think that's a life worth living? A life where your daughter has no idea who her father really is?" Mark's jaw clenched, and for a moment, Alex saw a flicker of doubt in his eyes, but it was quickly replaced by rage. "You need to stay away from my family, Carter. This is your final warning." Alex shook his head, disbelief flooding his senses. "You don't get to dictate who I can talk to, especially not Lily." Mark stepped back, a smirk playing on his lips, but there was something cold in his eyes. "You think you're some kind of savior? You're just a fool who doesn't know when to back down." With that, Mark turned and walked away, leaving Alex standing alone on the terrace, the weight of the confrontation heavy in the air. He knew he had to act, but he wasn't sure how. The danger surrounding Lily was far too real, and the stakes were higher than he had anticipated. As the night deepened, Alex found it difficult to shake the feeling of dread that lingered. He returned to the gala, surveying the remaining guests, their laughter and chatter contrasting sharply with the turmoil in his mind. He needed to gather more information about Mark's dealings to understand just how deep the corruption ran. But more than that, he felt a growing sense of responsibility towards Lily. She was just an innocent child, caught in the crossfire of her father's choices. He couldn't let her suffer for Mark's mistakes, and he wouldn't allow her to be shielded from the truth any longer. With a renewed sense of purpose, Alex resolved to protect Lily at all costs. He would dig deeper into Mark's life, uncover the secrets that lay hidden beneath the surface, and, if necessary, confront Mark again. This time, he needed to be armed with the truth that would shatter the facade Mark had built around himself. He would not allow history to repeat itself. Lily deserved better, and Alex was determined to be the one to give it to her, no matter the cost. The sun had just begun to rise, casting a gentle glow over the city as Alex Carter sat in his expansive home office, sifting through stacks of documents. The previous night's gala still echoed in his mind, the vibrant laughter and chit-chat of the elite crowd now replaced by an unsettling silence. He couldn't shake the memory of Lily's wide, innocent eyes as she had recognized him, a connection that was both unexpected and troubling. More than that, it was a reminder of the past he had thought he had buried, a past that now threatened to resurface with alarming consequences. "Think, Alex," he muttered to himself, running a hand through his tousled hair. He needed to act. Mark, Lily's father, was a man whose shadow loomed large, and Alex had a sinking feeling that the man was more dangerous than he appeared. The brief interaction with Lily stirred something deep within him, a sense of responsibility he had long abandoned. He had to protect her not just for her sake, but as a chance for him to atone for his own past mistakes. With purpose, Alex opened his laptop and began to dig into Mark's business practices. Hours passed as he navigated through a labyrinth of financial reports, corporate filings, and hidden records. Each click revealed more of the deceit that Mark had woven into his dealings: fraudulent contracts, embezzlement, and a trail of betrayal that whispered of desperation. The evidence was damning, and Alex's heart raced as he realized the extent of Mark's corruption. "This man is a snake," Alex murmured to himself, his fingers flying over the keyboard. As the pieces of the puzzle came together, he felt a weight settle on his chest, one that signified not just urgency, but fear for Lily's safety. He knew he had to confront Mark, but first he needed to gather more information. Later that afternoon, Alex found himself standing outside Lily's school, an unassuming building filled with children's laughter and innocence. He felt out of place, a stark contrast to the world of wealth and power he usually occupied. But he pushed through the discomfort. Today was about Lily. As he entered the school, the walls were adorned with colorful artwork, a testament to the creativity of the children within. Alex approached the front desk, his heart pounding. "I'm here to see Lily," he said, trying to sound confident despite the anxiety swirling in his stomach. "Do you have an appointment?" the receptionist asked, raising an eyebrow. "No, but I really need to speak with her. It's important," he insisted, desperation creeping into his voice. After a brief pause, the receptionist relented. "All right, I'll call her to the office. Please wait here." Moments later, the door swung open, and there stood Lily, her auburn hair catching the light, framing her delicate face. Upon seeing Alex, her expression shifted from surprise to a bright smile. "Mr. Carter," she exclaimed, rushing towards him. "Hey, Lily," he said, crouching down to meet her at eye level. "How are you today?" "I'm good. I was just drawing. I made a picture of a unicorn." She beamed, her excitement infectious. "That sounds amazing. I'd love to see it sometime," he replied, feeling warmth spread through him. This was the connection he had been longing for, a genuine bond with someone who saw him as a person, not just a businessman. "Do you want to know about my dad?" she asked, her expression shifting to one of curiosity. "He said he used to know you a long time ago." Alex's heart sank at the mention of Mark. "I'd like to know," "Yes," he said carefully. Lily's brows furrowed as she thought. "He doesn't talk about you much, just that you were his friend before. But sometimes he seems sad when he does. I don't understand why." Alex hesitated, searching for the right words. "Sometimes people have secrets, Lily, things they don't want to share. But you deserve to know the truth about your father. He's not the man he pretends to be." Lily's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" Just as Alex was about to delve deeper into the truth, the school door swung open, and Mark strode in, all bravado and fury. The atmosphere shifted instantly, and Lily backed away slightly, sensing the tension. "What are you doing here?" Mark's voice was cold, cutting through the warmth of the moment. "I was just talking to Lily," Alex said, standing his ground. "She's a bright girl and deserves to know who her father really is." Mark stepped closer, his demeanor aggressive. "You have no right to interfere in our lives, Carter. This is none of your business." "None of my business? You're putting her in danger with your lies and deceit." Alex shot back, anger surging through him. The memories of betrayal flooded his mind, fueling his determination to protect Lily at all costs. "Watch your tone," Mark warned, a dangerous edge to his voice. "You don't know anything about me or what I'm capable of." Lily looked between the two men, confusion etched on her young face. "Dad, please don't fight," she pleaded, her voice trembling. "Lily, you need to stay out of this," Mark snapped, his eyes narrowing at her. "Come with me." "No, I want to hear what Mr. Carter has to say," she insisted, standing her ground, surprising Alex with her boldness. "Lily," I said, Mark began, but was interrupted by Alex. "Mark, you can't keep her in the dark forever. She deserves to know the truth, even if it hurts," Alex said firmly, his gaze locked on Mark's. The tension in the air was palpable, and Alex felt his heart race as he braced for Mark's response. He knew that this confrontation was not just for Lily's sake, but for his own redemption. Mark had taken so much from him, and now he was determined to take a stand. Mark's face flushed with anger, and he stepped closer to Alex, their faces mere inches apart. "You think you can just walk in here and dictate how I raise my daughter? You'll regret this," he hissed, his voice low and threatening. "I won't let you hurt her," Alex replied, his tone unwavering. "You're not the man you pretend to be, and she deserves to know that." Lily watched the two men, her small fists clenched in determination. "Stop it. You're both being mean," she shouted, her voice cutting through the tension. "I just want to know the truth." At that moment, the bell rang, signaling the end of recess, and children began to pour into the hallway. The scene around them was chaotic, but for Alex and Mark, time seemed to freeze. In that instant, Alex realized that he couldn't let fear dictate his actions any longer. This wasn't just about protecting Lily. It was about breaking free from the chains of his own past. "Lily, I promise you," Alex said softly, kneeling down to her level once more, his voice gentle. "I will do everything I can to keep you safe. You deserve to know who your father really is." Mark's eyes darkened, and Alex could sense the danger simmering beneath the surface. The stakes had never been higher, and he knew that Mark would stop at nothing to protect his secrets. But Alex was ready to fight for Lily, even if it meant confronting the demons of his own past once and for all. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm golden hue over the city as Alex Carter sat in his sleek black sedan, parked discreetly outside the courthouse. His heart raced, a mix of anticipation and dread swirling within him. He had finally gathered enough evidence against Mark, evidence that could bring the man to justice and, more importantly, protect Lily from the clutches of her father's shady dealings. It was a dangerous move, one that could backfire spectacularly. Mark was a powerful man, and Alex knew all too well the lengths he would go to maintain his grip on power. Taking a deep breath, Alex stepped out of the car and adjusted his jacket. He had spent countless hours sifting through documents, piecing together Mark's fraudulent activities, and he was ready to take a stand. As he walked towards the entrance, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. The bustling crowd moved around him, but his focus was singular, on the truth that needed to be unveiled. Inside the courthouse, the air was thick with tension. Alex approached the reception desk, his heart thumping loudly in his chest. "I need to file a report about Mark Thompson," he said, his voice steady despite the nervous energy coursing through him. The clerk glanced up, a hint of recognition flickering in her eyes. She nodded and directed him to the appropriate office. As he entered the small room, Alex was met by a middle-aged woman with sharp features and a no-nonsense demeanor. "Mr. Carter, what brings you here today?" she asked, looking over her glasses with an air of skepticism. "I have information regarding Mark Thompson's illegal activities," he replied, his voice firm. "I believe he's been involved in fraud, and I have evidence to prove it." The woman raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Go on." Alex laid out the documents he had meticulously compiled, each page filled with damning evidence. "This is just the tip of the iceberg. He's been embezzling funds and manipulating contracts," he explained, feeling a surge of resolve. "And it's not just about the money. He's putting his daughter's life at risk." The woman studied the documents, her expression shifting from skepticism to seriousness. "If what you're saying is true, this could be very serious. Are you prepared for the consequences?" "I don't care about the consequences," Alex said, his voice rising slightly. "What matters is Lily. She deserves to know the truth about her father." As the woman made notes and asked probing questions, Alex felt a weight lift off his shoulders. He was finally doing something, taking action to protect the innocent girl who had unknowingly pulled him back into a past he thought he had left behind. Meanwhile, outside the courthouse, Mark Thompson stood leaning against his car, a dark cloud hanging over him. He had received a tip-off about Alex's intentions, and the realization that his empire was crumbling filled him with rage. "How dare he?" Mark muttered to himself, his fists clenching in anger. The thought of Alex trying to undermine him, especially in front of his daughter, was intolerable. With a scowl etched on his face, Mark stormed into the courthouse, his eyes scanning the lobby for any sign of Alex. He spotted him just as he was exiting the office where he had just met with the authorities. "Carter!" Mark shouted, striding toward him with purpose. The tension between the two men was palpable, their history of betrayal and deceit hanging heavily in the air. Alex turned slowly, bracing himself for the confrontation. "Mark," he said, his voice low and steady, "I should have known you'd come. Do you really think you can just walk in here and ruin my life?" Mark spat, his voice dripping with venom. "You're a fool if you think the authorities will take you seriously. You have no proof." "Don't underestimate me," Alex replied, standing his ground. "I have everything I need to expose you, and I will not let you continue to hurt Lily." Mark stepped closer, his demeanor shifting from anger to menace. "You think you're her savior? You're nothing but a washed-up businessman trying to play hero. Your time is over, Carter. You'll regret this." Before Alex could respond, a small voice pierced the tension. "Dad?" It was Lily, standing just a few feet away, her eyes wide with confusion and fear. She had come searching for her father, only to stumble upon this explosive confrontation. "Lily, stay back," Mark barked, his tone sharp and commanding. But Lily didn't move. Instead, she stepped forward, her small frame filled with unexpected courage. "No, Dad, I want to know the truth. About you. About everything." "Lily, this isn't the time," Mark said, his voice laced with irritation. But there was a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. "It is the time, Dad," she insisted, her voice stronger than Alex had ever heard it. "I know you've lied to me. I know there's more to your story than what you've been telling me, and I deserve to know." "Lily, you don't understand," he snapped, but Alex saw the crack in Mark's facade. "You need to trust me. I'm doing this for you." "For me?" Lily echoed, her gaze piercing into her father's. "You're doing this for yourself. You've hurt people, and I know it. Alex is trying to protect me, And you're trying to keep your secrets. The tension in the air shifted as Mark's expression morphed into one of desperation. You don't know what you're saying, he yelled, but the authority in his voice was fading. Yes, I do, Lily shouted back, tears brimming in her eyes. I want to be safe. I want to know who you really are. Alex watched the exchange with a mix of admiration and concern. This brave girl was standing up to the man who had controlled her life, and in doing so, she was taking back her own power. Just then, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed down the hallway. The authorities had arrived, alerted by the evidence Alex had provided. Mark's face paled as he saw the officers enter the courthouse, his bravado crumbling. You think this is over? You think you've won? He spat at Alex, but there was a tremor in his voice now. Mark Thompson, you're under arrest for fraud and embezzlement, one of the officers said, stepping forward with handcuffs in hand. You have the right to remain silent. As Mark was led away, the weight of his crimes finally crashing down around him, Lily turned to Alex, her expression a mixture of relief and gratitude. She rushed into his arms, and Alex enveloped her in a warm embrace. In that moment, he felt a sense of redemption wash over him. By standing up for Lily, he had also stood up for himself. You did it, Alex, Lily whispered, her voice muffled against his shoulder. You saved me. I couldn't have done it without your courage, Lily, he replied, his heart swelling with pride. You showed me that the past doesn't have to define us. We can choose our own future. As they stood there in the courthouse, the chaos of the world around them faded away. Alex realized that by protecting Lily, he had also embarked on a new journey of healing for himself. The shadows of his past were still present, but they no longer held the same power over him. This was just the beginning of a new chapter for both of them, one filled with hope, truth, and the promise of brighter days ahead. If you liked the content, don't forget to leave a like, a comment, and share it with your friends. Your comment is essential for the growth of the channel. And look at this video that appears on the screen. See you soon.